been disaster.
Yeah, agreed.
Special disaster like this, there was I can't remember in my lifetime when the country was more unified than in the aftermath of 9/11.
Well, that's what people are also saying.
Flags flying.
I guess September 12th. I didn't want to go through 11th again.
No, the 12th. It was like everyone was unified for the most part. And which is.
Well, I think we went and bought American flags.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, you see it after that. I mean, in time, all that waned, but there was a tremendous sense of unity when this occurred.
I heard about
Which is
when you go to this one, if you trade images, this is all.
That's the last one I'm supposed to look at, right?
No, you can't on air, but I'm just letting you know when you do this, put your thumb on the two timers, because it's meant to be rotated. So we designed it so that you can't keep having to rotate
It's
it.
very fast. I went through
Because
it.
we want to represent the chaos of the time.
Oh, yeah.
And this book is in all the collections. This is in the Getty and Sanford and Wilman and Library of Congress and Smithsonian and we made a position of 101 and this is 101st. So because we wanted one to be in the collection. So
there was a hideous.
One thing with the flags is interesting that it's all irrelevant silliness, but
Yeah,
we put a little
Yeah,
plastic
Giuliani
flag
was
on
here at
our
the time,
tires
was
and
in our.
and then we were going to, that was the fall of San Antonio, but we came when my daughter was in second grade, we came out here in San Antonio, but we were.
Like a comment here, but it's the truth.
We didn't know.
Witness account versus the media.
It was just us writing about that night. I mean, that was really us just noticing what the hell's going on. We were just talking. I was writing everything down and handing the paper around because I wanted to save it.
Yeah.
I saved it. I don't know how else to think of it.
Yeah.
Again, it was the art principle, Steve, right? I just kicked into like art gear. Didn't know what else to do.
Exactly.
I immediately go to art when I'm like freaked out by something.
It's your way of process.
Yeah. So I'm quite proud of
You've done that.
I'm quite proud of this material, but it's only been seen 5 times. Because it's obviously too much of an emotional scar for most people to really.
Grass flag, you put a flag up on the gate, let it wear off all the way down to him. Another flag out for him.
Guys, I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
And it's like, dude, can't you at least?
I watched one of the papers and take a sheet of paper and weave it into the chamber.
But didn't Walmart kept running out of flags?
New rule 434 required submissions of requests.
Telling Lewis that one of the neighbors put his American flag up on the gate by his farm there. No lights or anything, just random. It's a flag at the top of the pole. And wore it down to the hem.
I touched
And then put another flag up and wore it down to the hem. And it's like, dude, if you're gonna respect he would have freaked out if he didn't burn the flag. Which at least has a reason to burn the flag. This guy was destroying it because he loves the country, I guess.
This is not the letter I had in
Yeah,
mind.
you still have to,
You know, if you're gonna fly it, and you follow the guidelines for it. So.
Yeah.
On their own time, eager to have everything in the classrooms just right for the children.
Showing
Fresh,
about, yeah.
clean, interesting for a great new year, full of potential for learning.
Sort of like notes processing.
I wanted to write about how
Very
good it was
similar.
in class and to dig right into their studies. And I wanted to write about how great it was to see you and how I was looking forward to working with you this year. That was then, before Tuesday. And now is now, and it is different. I have to write about how, overlaid on an event of unspeakable horror, I found selflessness, love, and generosity. The instant this tragedy struck, parents came into the school offering help, asking what they could do.
Okay, what's the deal with the
Parents set
dollar?
up an information center,
So he gave it
brought
to me.
food,
It's
relayed
so
messages
bizarre.
to the classes.
He said people were
organized
passing that.
events,
Look at his picture.
they
Wait,
were
and then the watch we trust. Bizarre.
who we knew
It's
worked
so
in
bizarre.
towns or nearby, and making sure each child would be picked up by
Look,
phone.
You hear all kinds of conspiracy
Parents
stuff.
in their homes
I will have none of it.
There was no way.
If there was, then it was by other Saudi Wahhabists and like-minded people like that.
I think there's a lot of.
If there was any of that, but for the U.S. to intentionally sacrifice the lives of thousands of their own citizens and destroy the World Trade Center and all the things that they did and do all that.
As I walked from class
I feel-
to
I feel
class,
sure
People
that-
want that to be
drawing,
true.
writing,
Wackos, I don't buy it for a
I
minute.
am in awe of how
I
the
agree.
staff could reach into
Suggest
themselves
that.
and find the
I
strength.
just think there's like the horrible communication and egos and people not sharing information that would have told them that it was coming. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. But no, I don't think there was a.
No, I don't think there's some sort of massive government conspiracy to do this.
Oh, people say that.
Yeah, I don't know.
We were able to
Dude,
make arrangements for our children.
I'm comfortable that they didn't.
Words cannot express.
Look at how our entire
Today,
lives
again, we will keep
changed
children
that day.
indoors at recess to keep them as
You
safe
can
and
no longer
secure
fly
as
the way we
possible.
did back then.
All
Right.
children must be.
Ever since.
I miss the old days that teach people today when they flew in.
Programs will be canceled
Right.
for further
I mean,
Oh, that's right.
remember?
After that, you can't go to the gate.
You can't go to the gates like you used to get.
Hug your loved ones.
Yeah, that used to be, that was a great day
Last
back
night,
when
my
you could
staff
do that. You can't do that anymore. You can't
discussed
read
how
them.
we're going
Well, I used to enjoy flying, because I was also smaller, so I fit in the seats better, but I used to actually go flying. And
to express their feelings. and
Now, you know,
thoughts.
you gotta take off shoes,
want
you
children
pat
to
it
know
down,
how
all
to
this
care.
garbage, you know, and
We
wait
want to
for
be able to
ridiculous
answer their
lines,
questions
entire
as
departments
best we can.
created.
How many Americans do you think were had anxiety getting on planes after that?
We want to
Oh,
reassure
quite a
them
few,
that
there
we
were
try
quite a few
as hard
who
as
fly
we
for
can
them, some
to
wouldn't
keep them
have.
safe and secure, as we did on Tuesday and every day. We want to be truthful and address what happened at their level.
It's a little nutty. It's not like anything else that I
We
do,
want to
it's
help them
it's a standalone object I'm kind of stuck with for the rest of my life, but yeah.
We want to.
The ultimate goal is to put it into a
encourage
New York
the
institution,
words
and it did tour in New York at the 5th
and
anniversary.
instill the hope that
But
groups of
It
people
wasn't
and
emotionally
governments
possible,
use words to solve
so there has to be
problems.
distance, and so
They
I'm
would
waiting
like
for the
to
time,
take
and
action, writing letters,
Getty offered me
words,
money for it
lies,
at one point, and I said, I'm not leaving this in LA, why would we?
We,
It doesn't make any sense, this has to be bought by the Cougar or the Whitney or somebody in New York, it doesn't make any sense for this to be,
children may not be able to talk about their
you know, in
worries,
LA.
which will come out in the following ways: headaches, stomach aches, backaches,
You're
trouble
thinking they're all
breathing,
digitized too, aren't they? Or not?
nightmares,
No,
This is all your.
These are obviously in
worry,
three-ring
loss
binder.
of concentration.
Actually, this one is bound, I made it bound.
Oh, let me show you
This is the book,
We will
it's made
provide
of
materials
composed
for children
elements.
so that they can work
So
out
everything goes in this,
express
and I
their
used,
feelings through art.
so we were book artists, that was kind of the point. I used pin screws, so it could be taken apart, so I just took it apart for right now.
This is the cover.
That was the box, right? My girlfriend, that's the box this comes in, my girlfriend made that, when we toured, that's obviously years later, because that's the 2003 protests.
Yeah.
But when this thing toured, that was the box this thing goes in. So, but I wanted it to be, as people were coming, I could just punch holes in it and stick it in the book. So I made it with these screws, so I could just,
And you know what really happened in imagery in my head is when Bush was sitting here, like at school, and they told him it happened. He was like, this is like.
first time I played guitar, sorry, I'm saying,
Remember when Bush was like,
couldn't play music, freaked out, right? We're 5 days, just da. And Chris goes, you need to come in here, because we're recording people in the studio, and he's like, you need to come in here right now. I'm like, what? He grabbed his cello, and I grabbed my guitar, and we just sat there for like an hour, and just made sure we could still play music. The notion that I could still play music didn't exist until that moment. You know, I couldn't think about even the notion of playing music in my soul anymore, you know? So my buddy Chris was like, we need to do this. And this was just us like realizing, yes, we can still make music, you know, or whatever it is. So bizarre. The emotions were so bizarre, like,
you were 33, you said?
yes.
I think I was.
Among my friends, the following possibilities are not outcounted. That Osama bin Laden had nothing to do with this.
Oh, you did? I thought you were about to, I remember his
US
ones.
citizens.
He's counting back
There was
sales.
failure of communication between the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, the Federal Aviation Agency, and the World Trade Center in Manhattan, and that we, my friends, may never know what happened. There is ample opportunity for
No,
U.S.
I was
government
out of
to
the service.
use
You're out.
I was 48 when I retired from the Air Force in 96.
So you have been out for a while.
expected to go on with
Yeah, yeah,
it,
yeah, 96.
our
So it was
lives,
5 years.
the economy, urban dwelling, keeping
I
our
was
friends'
42,
businesses,
I was
afloat,
47.
shelving our grief,
I was half that.
surrounding with information and disinformation.
No, but you remember when Bush, when they told him it happened, he was all like, he was sitting
He was
down.
reading the
He was
book.
sitting- Yeah, he just.
There's
like-
a lot of
I
pictures.
saw that, and they whispered, it was.
Yeah, whispered.
He was reading the goat book, and he had the book upside down, and then later it came out.
His eyes were like.
But he seemed, you could tell he was agitated, but he remained composed because of where he was.
But his eyes were all pretty well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He was like, he was like, his eyes were
Macabre,
like, it shows.
I only saw that later. I was pretty much in the
American
streets.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you were. Yeah, I saw that later too.
I saw it mediated for
Yeah.
backward looking.
That was from a public health document about sending out vaccines, but I thought it fit perfectly for what this project was.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
The epidemic.
Eyes,
I like the imagery.
Yeah, it's cool as well too, yeah.
Running commentary.
So is this screen supposed to be something here or not?
Is what, sorry?
This screen right here is just.
I was gonna put it behind, I was just trying to create baffles so that we focus on this stuff is what I was trying to do. Yeah. I didn't want to implement anybody's other work into this. That's kind of complicated, you know? So I just brought some of that and these two things to kind of just.
Well, you know, in America right now, there's a lot of
Did they do that?
You know, it's funny, I've seen this People magazine. We have the first issue. My dad, yeah, we have the,
Wow.
the first issue of People magazine.
What year is that?
It's back away, huh? My dad was collect about that, he collected. And he died in 1982.
You ended up with all of it.
Well, I know my brother's got it. They have all the, he's got the first edition of Playboy,
Wow.
Mad Magazine.
Nice, really.
Oh,
Yeah, cool. Yeah, some good ones, some really good ones from the day that are now gone. And also, it's one where they told comics, heavy metal.
Oh, yeah, wow.
That's a cool one.
That's a really cool one. I remember growing up with that stuff, and I remember growing up
The
with
illustrations
Mad
are
Magazine.
awesome.
Sure.
Yeah, they
I
were
love
awesome.
that. That was great. All the little
Now they're
tiny.
done.
Yeah.
I saw that, and I go, oh man. I used to love,
So, yeah,
Quentin
Quentin Tarantino got them to do one for the new movie. I don't know if
Did he?
you've seen it, but there's a character in the movie, and they made. He asked them to make a Mad Magazine as though it's from the time for this character who's an actor in a TV
really?
show, a big TV show. And Matt said, "We won't just make a cover; we'll make an issue." So they made a full issue for him, and it's like it's as though that actor exists, and the whole issue. Yeah, like you could sit it as right with the. Yeah, that happened this past summer. But that's
what an image. But that's quite an image.
high school student
Unbelievable.
took that. Everything there is produced by high school
The moment it
students.
was collapsing.
You should open it and
This
read.
vantage point.
Open it and read what the kid who took that picture. The first thing is in there. Open it and read what he writes. It's crazy.
High school newspapers.
Yeah, from that neighborhood, right there, right. Read what he says about it.
Right on the inside.
Yeah,
Did you see
I
that?
think, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Felt guilty for days.
There is much grief among labor. City service.
That's something a young photographer says, right? He felt guilty
Well, he's taking
because he was taking a picture
He's
instead
taking
of
a
looking
picture
at
while
it.
thousands are
Yeah,
dying.
right.
That they're dying at
Yeah,
that moment.
exactly right.
And that's what we forget. You're looking at this, you see a cloud of dust and rubble, and all this, you know.
That's the moment the 2,800
That's
people
what you're
died.
seeing, but there are human beings and they're being just.
Yeah, that's the moment the 2,800 people died. And this kid was in high school.
What?
So he's 36 now. We have
Yeah. He said a priest was praying over.
Yeah, Frank Morales, Father Morales, I interviewed him. He was doing last rites for body parts. It was heavy, like they'd find a hand, and he was doing like last rites for a hand, you know, or like.
Men far more wise than we
That's pretty nice.
brought us to this solid night.
Nothing like this ever happened in America, so except for Florida.
1,000 souls.
Yeah, I mean, they're all. I don't think of things as the same. I think of everything different.
I mean, as far as that.
In terms of visitation of tech, you know.
Sight, just ashen cloud. Doubt that we were right.
I went up to you.
You said everything feels in that box, or it fits in that box.
Yeah. Everything fits in that metal box, which I got in India.
I started looking at the edges as I had before and saw that the same drift.
Nutty times.
Okay, I'm gonna take another break, we'll go back over, come back.
I'm just gonna hang out. Yeah.
So what time do you, world changed
Sunset.
For that.
The woman with wild
Definitely did.
the world changed?
The world changed.
He got a good point, he said that you can't go pick up your family members from the airport, the gates, and hug them and stuff.
No
Can
planes.
you believe that?
There were no planes in the sky over Manhattan. There were no planes in the sky. So when I'm telling you I'm walking down Broadway, it's quiet. I mean, it's quiet. No helicopters, no planes. And then every 2 hours you hear, I have recordings on here, you can hear them, of the fighter jets.
F-16s,
Like every 4 hours or so you hear one of
Sit
them.
by.
Yeah. Other than that, deathly silence.
It's all the pollution in the air.
Well, they were all-
Going east, you can see it from the
Well,
photos.
yeah, they scrambled,
All
they had to scramble those aircraft after.
Oh,
After it was-
no, they blew it. What do you mean? It's the biggest failure in history.
Well, I mean,
They should have been scrambled when the first one went off. Oh, come on. Outside America, the world considers this the greatest failure of intelligence ever. Okay? Only here do we sit around, nobody got fired, nobody lost their job, everybody we just said, oh, whatever, well, I guess we just missed it. No, this is the greatest failure of American
Intelligence, yeah, you think so, yeah.
It is. It is.
No one got fired.
4 hours, these planes are going around in circles and stuff, and nobody stops it. They were running, you guys know about Vanguard? I don't know if you know. They were running an operation that morning that had the fighter jets in Russia and Alaska because they were doing a Operation Vigilant Guardian. It was a planned exercise. So the planes were all gone. These fighters were all like elsewhere. So they couldn't scramble like.
I'll tell you what, the people that stopped the one that went into Pennsylvania, the one that should have went to, they were planning on the White House.
Yeah.
If those guys would have never.
Well, I think they were playing on the Sears Tower.
Oh, I didn't know, I never heard where they were aiming at that one.
I think they were trying to go for the Sears Tower. John Hancock.
I thought they were going.
To the White House.
No, because they were going west.
Something or
They were traveling west at that point.
But I'm just saying, if they didn't do anything, can you imagine in another?
Another 1,000.
Well, no, but Cheney said at that point they were.
It was shot down.
They would have shut it down.
Oh, okay, they would shut it down.
Which, can you imagine the horrible decision you have to make?
In that moment, right.
Well, with a commercial civilian.
No, you're killing
plane
4 bad
loaded
guys
with
with
hundreds of
bullets.
civilians.
Lives.
Right,
And
but
you
it's a
yourself
weapon at
have
that
to
point.
shoot down that plane. Just think about that.
Because they're hijacked by idiots.
You know, and put missiles on that. I mean, that's.
Yeah, but it's a weapon at that point,
Well,
right?
it is, but but think about that, it's still horrendous because you've got a
But it's,
plane
you were in the
loaded
military, isn't that what war is? I mean,
Well, you know it's gonna be collateral, but you hope there won't be.
It is.
So what about would have been?
It has to be.
That way, you know
Well,
it's-
that would be the right thing to do.
Hoping it's not.
But what about all the debris? Where would the debris go? On top of civilians too, right?
Work with different possible shooters, yeah.
yeah.
Hopefully they engage you before.
Well, it was in a field, right, where
They went down, yeah.
Usually what they try to do when they scramble is force the plane down to land. That's usually what they do. In this scenario, it would have been missiles. They would have had to shoot down. Especially if they were going to someplace like, the Capitol or White House. Yeah, they're gonna do that to the sea power. Oh, yeah.
Well, again, it should have been done.
What would you have done, Steve, if you were in the cockpit? I mean, the plane.
I'm sorry?
What would you have done if you were in one of those planes?
In 2002.
Well, if I knew what was going on, and maybe they didn't know, I'd have done like that guy in Pennsylvania did. Gather up guys and just rush them. Do what you can, but because you're gonna die. You know the odds are you're gonna die, so you might as well go out fighting like a beast. You might as well go out fighting like a beast and stop these fools. I would have done that with anything that I could. If I had keys in my pocket where something would have been used as a weapon, and you go after them.
So this is happening on November 1st, a plane went down on November 1st, filled with Dominicans, and it was an accident, filled with what? Dominican Republican people.
Yes.
And the flight number was, what's it written there, 587 or something? That was the lottery number that day in New York. I'm not kidding you. And I ran out there and I interviewed a woman, listen, who saw the plane go down. This shit was crazy. I interviewed this woman. I took the train all the way out to where the plane went down, and this woman was standing there, and she had just gotten off the bus, and she saw this thing, and it was. Imagine all of us already had gone through what we've gone through. So the plane goes down, immediately you think, it's happening again, you know what I mean? And this woman, this African-American woman I interviewed,
I never want to see anything like that in my life as long as I should live. It's terrible. Yes, I saw it go down. I was not at the site. I had just got off the 35, the Q35 bus. Q35 bus, because I take it from Brooklyn out here, and I connect to the 022.
Is it colleges or no side?
No, when those things fell from it did a quiver. You know, like the wind, something quiver from the wind, it quivered. And it turned nose down, and went nose down as far as I saw it going nose down. And then there's all this flame I saw. The smoke I saw maybe about 5 minutes
It
after.
make a terrible noise.
It did, you know, like an explosion. That's what, you could see the fire. When it hit it, the fire and everything was like an explosion.
So you saw something hit the plane, you think? Or,
No, nothing hit the plane.
but did you see
I
pieces
saw a box drop,
falling from the?
a big thing
Uh-huh.
that dropped. That was the first thing that dropped from the plane.
I see.
After that, there was something like this. First, I thought it was you know, like an umbrella or like a parachute. I don't know what it was, but there was something on the end of it, and that part was in flame. What it was, I don't know. 'Cause I'm looking this way.
That dropped from the plane.
From the plane, both people.
How far was it from the first time?
I was 116.
But so that happened like 2
2
months later, and the freaking number of the flight was the lottery number that day. 587 were the 3 lottery balls, and the flight goes down 587 from a wind shear.
And
Weird.
died?
300 something people, all from the Dominican Republic, because they were going back from they're going to the Dominican, yeah. Mostly Dominicans on this
Leaving
flight.
New York to go.
Yeah.
Only a month later, really. But no, not a month later.
More than 6 weeks, something like that.
6 weeks later.
It was nutty, man. It was totally nutty.
I'm sure you guys know.
Sure, yeah. I'll be here all day.
When something like this happens, you believe in God.
You're asking me that? Or are you asking the world like
You.
I'm an atheist.
I just wanted to get a conversation.
Well, you were also with your names, in a way. So, yeah. I don't know whether the towers get there, it's about 587 or whatever. But that was the separate speaker.
So, but I'm saying, like, you know, people have her life and all that stuff.
Yes.
And something like this happened, they're like,
It was tremendous agony. A lot of that's in these pages too. I mean, you have to kind of go through it all the time. People were clearly agony. They had a multi-denominational service for the dead at Yankee Stadium on the 23rd. Yeah,
It is said,
all the mayors, the
braggart,
living mayors came,
wants to
everybody
be
went highlights.
on
And
2
we all,
of his
somebody
enormous
had
steps.
a Jew, a Hindu,
At the
a
end,
Christian,
he asked,
they all got up
what
and they
impressed you
all,
most of all?
they had a
Sufi answered,
massive multi-denominational.
the fact that the earth is strong enough to support the weight of such a massive.
Yeah, that's the one.
I used to go to New York all the time. I was there that year. I used to go all the time. I had a lot of friends. So I would really go hang out there. Oh, and I had planned to go September 25.
People who need help. I don't think I'm one of them. You okay, sir? Okay.
Well, it was
Can I just get turn off the respirator?
it was crazy.
Right, well, I had a cell phone to record people.
Yeah, that's why I used that. Phones weren't, there were no cameras on your phone, there were no,
They need your friends to go to the state.
oh yeah, we did a lot of actually. We did protest work, our groups, our for the war.
And then you just come up to you guys and meet them.
Okay. Well, like I was telling you, we were walking children and we were creating groups to help other people that were suffering.
in my case, people are standing here, and I was trying to help others with these steps. Well, right, so that's why, but I'm also American, so I was trying to help those folks who couldn't really defend themselves, but basically this kind of crazy search for vengeance things come out of the States.
There's all these noise that I don't know what it is. If anyone needs help.
Yeah, that's a lot of, yeah, they held for 3 days, hundreds of people. Guys I knew, they're like, let's go pick up. What? So I'm like, what do you think? They're serious. They're like, that's not a jail. What the jail is? No, no reason. Just corral them. I mean, they had briars, but the briars were feeling dumb shit. So maybe they had warrants or whatever. He said they grabbed like 45 residents, threw us in jail for 3 days, no tough shit, and then let us go. On the 14th or whatever. That happened. Everybody's just reacting, no one knows what to do. Everybody knows what to do. People just doing shit. Yeah, so they were rushing to the house. So we were helping people do all that. No, no one could do anything. They just talked about us years ago. I want to more. Yeah, it's pretty. It's steady.
You can north on the west side highway. You guys going in? Yeah. Come with you. You know, I don't want to get too much closer because the more buildings would come down, then we're not going to help anybody. All right. I think we should. Yeah. Let's just wait right here. Let's just station up right here, okay? When we set up, can you hang on these in this pole here? Okay. Okay. We determine how they're explosive. They're handing us gloves and masks. Yes, it did.
Yes.
You see what it takes to go in there.
Right. So once I started making these people would bring them these.
And we're here to bring some people out.
So what's wrong with that? People, once they start, it's awesome. Exactly. Yes. Well, it's pretty expensive. So I know it's just far there. It's like that's the root of the reason I want to screw it. And I'm not against them. I'm just collecting everything, you know.
Yeah, I hear you.
Art principles, Steve.
The magazine called
Art principles.
Technological Jiu-Jitsu.
Art
There was a
principles.
charge called war, and the
Certain
Patriots
amount of
were
distance.
pronounced cowardly. The Jews did the yearly Kaddish. The silent hide their inner feelings of helplessness and sorrow under the heel of the militant boot. Humanists, monks, sages, rabbi, priests, imams, and the literati and Indians familiar with the same dull drumbeat that calls to war, protest, civilly for restraint. The callous soldiers smile, nod, and even wink.
Well, I didn't know this, but he's a person.
The clatter of machines of destruction drowns out the prayer for peace. I can no longer hear the voice of reason. Ah, there it is.
Yes, the lens of hindsight. I'll let you read. I thought so too. Do you have enough light there? I see the realize.
I'm not sure.
Oh, thanks. Are you back?
Among my friends, the following possibilities are not out-counted. That Osama bin Laden had nothing to do with this, that it could have been anyone, including U.S. citizens, that there was failure of communication between Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, the Federal Aviation Agency, and the World Financial Centers in Manhattan, and that we, my friends, may never know what happened because there is ample opportunity for U.S. government power to reconstitute evidence to tell whatever story advances their own agenda. We are expected to go on with it, our lives, the engine of the economy, urban dwelling, keeping our friends' businesses afloat, shelving our grief. We are drowning in information and disinformation, totally unconfident in the verity or trustworthiness of what we read, hear, or see. Older men and women and children in our communities are already parroting rumors we know to be false, yet we cannot refute them without arguing with our elders. And that is uncouth in a time of grief. We are a city dazed. Le grand grotesque, macabre burlesque, the sick jingo. American flags cut into Klansmen's robes would at least remind white America what it could become, backward looking. Nostalgia has become whitewashing. Profiling people as evil, less ugly or handicapped in this place of a million eyes, eyes upon eyes that watch and watch and watch and stare and record every action, every move, with running commentary of those who would dare to say what is not American. What is American? The illness continues among nations as among religions.
Cartoons here are interesting as well.
Indeed. Ooh. How's it going?
How's it?
Good. Good. We got like 6 or 7 people.
Are people liking it? Are they getting the
It's
whole?
not really about liking, but I think they're definitely affected. And 2 of them thanked me profusely. That's good. Heavy. So it starts here chronologically. So you're going to the 11th, and you're going that way. So 11, 12, 13. And I remember there's no computers.
Right.
There's no cell phones.
Right.
So every day at the end of the day, I took out my typewriter and I typed that day, and this is the actual music. So each day you can see.
And is this like a progressive timeline?
Each day.
Right.
And that's the high school that's there. The kid who took that picture, this is what he produced. You're looking at all stuff from the time. There's interviews with people everywhere. There's audio of interviews, there's good interviews. That's the tape recorder I used to record people with. So
Does this face work okay? Is this everything's all right?
I think it's
It
working.
looks great.
You should check out that Sarah Parkell fine letterpress. It's pretty amazing.
Right on.
It's in the legends.
Yeah.
I think it works all right.
And so that's the beginning, is this?
That's 5-year anniversary. Okay. So this is the first 3 months, goes up to here. And then like 1 year, and then 5 years.
It's intense, man. What's this? Is this?
I just put it there because I did, that's why I put chick with some chair.
No, it's good there. I was just wondering if that was different.
No. Just. I shouldn't interfere. It's best if you just kind of explore.
Yeah, you're good, man.
Sure.
whenever I see movies now, I still can't believe it. Like you watch movies before and after, and it's just you're like,
Yeah.
that was there.
Pomp and grieving in public, parading crocodile tears beside real horror and pain, the very real, the surreal, and the hyper-real are all made one in boiling steel, and in the vicious, vengeful eyes of the racist, ignorant, soulless fool who has never known war. Real hell is the stories of the survivors on the losing side. Ask the Iraqis, the Afghanis, the Kosovar. Grief ranged from tiny creeks of interminable length, turning in the maddening darkness atypical silent in New York, to wailing and heaving of the form, into the bed, into the sofa, into the walls. A white glow from the work lights bathes the thin cloud of dust over lower Manhattan, accentuating the sickening void, the absence that leads to a path of thinking of why and having to replay the mental image of those dreadful television broadcasts. City election primary held, runoff due, schools reconvened, businesses running, many running scared and nervous. Students trying to create some normality attempt to put Manhattan into the semester format. Midterms soon due. There's a hole and a massive pile of rubble downtown. Normality and madness walk hand in hand down the middle of Broadway. Library full, publishers active, artists, performers, writers, editors, and entertainment, communications, and fashion sectors all scrambling. Some faring better than others, not because of content, but sheer volume. There is much grieving among labor. City services and its employees have been stalwart throughout, but heavy hearts are apparent in the faces of many. The economy worsens.
Spiegelman signed it too. He came to the show and everybody came to the show.
Of course.
That's the first piece of music I played. It was 6 days after my friend Chris sat me down. Like, you like those music? How do I can play music? Like, we need to make some music. We need to know that we can still play music. It was crazy, dude. I was in such a collecting mode. I was like, I couldn't think straight. Yeah, I thought I'd make sure I should be locked for us. 18 years of experience thinking about it. What that can do. It's a hard one for me because nothing else in my life will ever be like this. And I feel like I'm the steward of this.
There's somebody in New York runs a gallery called Soapbox, which is in Brooklyn, right next to the Net Station.
Somebody Blew Up
It's only
America
building for 40 years.
by
He's an
Amiri
artist.
Baraka.
And
They say
Steve?
it's some terrorist, some barbaric.
This is a quick
in
point.
Afghanistan. It wasn't our American
I'm gonna let this
terrorists.
happen
It wasn't the Klan.
So, Amiri Baraka wrote a poem. It was supposed to be on HBO. He went, they did the live thing, and then HBO censored the poem. And I re-recorded it myself and wrote to Baraka. And he ended up becoming a friend before he died. He blessed the birth of my son when my son was born. And so this is me reading the poem that was censored at the time. It's called Somebody Blew Up America, and it's
Or
pretty
the
great.
skinheads, or the them that Somebody Blew Up America by Amiri Baraka. They say it's some terrorist, some barbaric Arab in Afghanistan. It wasn't our American terrorists. It wasn't the Klan or the skinheads or the them that blows up nigger churches or reincarnates us on death row. It wasn't Trent Lott or David Duke or Giuliani or Schindler Helms retiring. It wasn't the gonorrhea in costume, the white sheet diseases that have murdered black people, terrorized reason and sanity, most of humanity as they pleases. They say, who say? Who do the saying? Who is them paid? Who tell the lies? Who in disguise? Who had the slaves? Who got the bucks out the bucks? Who got fat from plantations? Who genocided Indians, tried to waste the black nation? Who live on Wall Street, the first plantation? Who cut your nuts off? Who raped your maw? Who lynched your paw? Who got the tar? Who got the feathers? Who had the match? Who set the fires? Who killed and hired? Who say they God and still be the devil? Who the biggest only? Who the most goodest? Who do Jesus resemble? Who created everything? Who the smartest? Who the greatest? Who the richest? Who say you ugly and they the good lookingest? Who define art? Who define science? Who made the bomb? Who made the guns? Who bought the slaves? Who sold them? Who called you them names? Who say Dahmer wasn't insane? Who stole Puerto Rico? Who stole the Indies, the Philippines, Manhattan, Australia, and the Hebrides? Who forced opium on the Chinese? Who owned them buildings? Who got the money? Who think you funny? Who locked you up? Who owned the papers? Who owned the slave ship? Who run the army? Who the fake president? Who the ruler? Who the banker? Who owned the mine? Who twist your mind? Who got bread? Who need peace? Who you think need war? Who own the oil? Who do no toil? Who own the soil? Who is not a nigger? Who is so great ain't nobody bigger? Who own this city? Who own the air? Who own the water? Who own your crib? Who rob and steal and cheat and murder and make lies the truth? Who call you uncouth? Who live in the biggest house? Who do the biggest crime? Who go on vacation anytime? Who killed the most niggers? Who killed the most Jews? Who killed the most Italians? Who killed the most Irish? Who killed the most Africans? Who killed the most Japanese? Who killed the most Latinos? Who owned the ocean? Who owned the airplanes? Who owned the malls? Who owned television? Who owned radio? Who owned what ain't even known to be owned? Who owned the owners that ain't the real owners? Who own the suburbs? Who suck the cities? Who make the laws? Who made Bush president? Who believe the Confederate flag need to be flying? Who talk about democracy and be lying? Who the beast in Revelations? Who 666? Who know who decide Jesus get crucified? Who the devil on the real side? Who got rich from Armenian genocide? Who the biggest terrorist? Who changed the Bible? Who killed the most people? Who do the most evil? Who don't worry about survival? Who have the colonies? Who stole the most land? Who rule the world? Who say they good but only do evil? Who the biggest executioner? Who own the oil? Who wants more oil? Who told you what you think that later you find out a lie? Who found Bin Laden? Maybe they Satan. Who paid the CIA? Who knew the bomb was gonna blow? Who knew why the terrorists learned to fly in Florida, San Diego? Who know why 5 Israelis was filming the explosion and cracking their sides at the notion? Who need fossil fuel when the sun ain't going nowhere? Who make the credit cards? Who get the biggest tax cut? Who walked out of the conference against racism? Who killed Malcolm Kennedy and his brother? Who killed Dr. King? Who would want such a thing? Are they linked to the murder of Lincoln? Who invaded Grenada? Who made money from apartheid? Who keep the Irish a colony? Who overthrew Chile and Nicaragua later? Who killed David Sebeco, Chris Hani, the same ones who killed Biko, Cabral, Neruda, Allende, Che Guevara, Sandino? Who killed Kabila? The ones who wasted Lumumba, Mondlane, Betty Shabazz, Die, Princess Die, Ralph Featherstone, Little Bobby? Who locked up Mandela, Doruba, Geronimo, Assata, Mumia, Garvey, Dashiell Hammett, Alphaeus Hutton? Who killed Huey Newton, Fred Hampton, Medgar Evers, Mikey Smith, Walter Rodney? Was it the ones who tried to poison Fidel, who tried to keep the Vietnamese oppressed, who put a price on Lenin's head, who put the Jews in ovens and who helped them do it, who said, America first, and okayed the yellow stars? Who killed Rosa Luxemburg, Lee Next, who murdered the Rosenbergs, and all the good people iced, tortured, assassinated, vanished? Who got rich from Algeria, Libya, Haiti, Iran, Iraq, Saudi, Kuwait, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, Jordan, Palestine? Who cut off people's hands in the Congo? Who invented AIDS? Who put the germs in the Indians' blankets? Who thought up the Trail of Tears? Who blew up the Maine and started the Spanish-American War? Who got Sharon back in power? Who backed Batista, Hitler, Bilbo, Chiang Kai-shek? Who decided affirmative action had to go? Reconstruction, the New Deal, the New Frontier, the Great Society? Who do Tom Ass Clarence work for? Who do come out the colon's mouth? Who know what kind of skeezer is a Condoleezza? Who pay Connolly to be a wooden Negro? Who give genius awards to Homo locus subsidiare? Who overthrew Nkrumah Bishop? Who poisoned Robeson? Who tried to put Du Bois in jail? Who framed Rap Jamil Al-Amin? Who framed the Rosenbergs, Garvey, the Scottsboro Boys, the Hollywood 10? Who set the Reichstag fire? Who knew the World Trade Center was gonna get bombed? Who told 4,000 Israeli workers at the Twin Towers to stay home that day? Why did Sharon stay away? Who?
High school.
Explosion of owl, the newspapers say. Devil face.
The high school is right where that photo is.
Who make money from war? Who make dough from fear and lies? Who want the world like it is? Who want the world to be ruled by imperialism and national oppression and terror violence and hunger and poverty? Who is the ruler of hell? Who is the most powerful? Who you know ever seen God? But everybody seen the devil, like an owl exploding in your life, in your brain, in yourself, like an owl who know the devil all night, all day if you listen, like an owl exploding in fire. We hear the questions rise in terrible flame, like the whistle of a crazy dog, like the acid vomit of the fire of hell. Who and who and who and who?
Panic is selfish. The obvious. People died. I waited by the radio. I heard about a man who had walked all the way home to 92nd Street, his face smeared with ash, his suit soaked through with sweat. I heard about a man who fled his home after a computer blew in through the window. I heard about an old couple tottering across the Williamsburg Bridge. Nobody can hurt us in Brooklyn, said the woman. And then the radio spoke again, a sentence that began, a firefighter killed by a falling body. I covered my face with my hands. The smoke coiled upward, constantly giving birth to itself. There was a hideous solidity to it. It was our new building.
Well, it's been a long time since we've met.
Rule 434. Saranya Swinavan, 23 years old, 5'6", 115 pounds, date of birth 8/17/78.
It belongs in your institution.
Missing loved one, Casey Cho, height 5'7", weight 130 pounds. Worked for Marsh and McLennan on the 99th floor, Tower 1. Note, has tattoo of dragon down the middle of back with a Chinese character in red. Also has a tribal tattoo along center lower back and of tailbone. If you have any information on her whereabouts, please call. We saw the first memorial in Washington Square as we walked toward Jennifer's West Village apartment, following a band of blue sky. In the chain-link fence surrounding Washington Arch, people had left flowers. There were dozens of missing signs, scores of candles, a quote from Gandhi, a quote from Chief Seattle. Someone had left big sheets of poster board and a pen on the fence. I wanted to leave something, but a knot of shock, of grief, stopped up my throat. Peace on earth, I wrote. I watched a young bike messenger take a sheet of paper and weave it into the chain-link fence. It was a half-burned memo that had fluttered from the towers. New Rule 434 required submissions of requests for extension of time. I request an extension of time for Saranya Srinavan. I request an extension of time for Casey Cho. I touched the scorched edges of the paper, amber, brittle as moth wings. The bike messenger pedaled south again. I understood what moved him to do this.
Dear families, this is not the letter I had in mind to write to you for the first letter of the year. I was going to write about how all the teachers came into school a week early, on their own time, eager to have everything in the classrooms just right for the children, fresh and clean and interesting for a great new year full of potential for learning and growing. I wanted to write about how eager the children were to be in class and to dig right into their studies. And I wanted to write about how great it was to see you and how I was looking forward to working with you this year. That was then, before Tuesday. And now is now, and it is different. I have to write about how, overlaid on an event of unspeakable horror, I found selflessness, love, and generosity. The instant this tragedy struck, parents came into the school, offering help, asking what they could do. Parents set up an information center, brought food, relayed messages to the classes, helped at lunch and recess, and managed the release of children to adults. They worked the telephones tirelessly, trying to locate parents and guardians who we knew worked in the Twin Towers or nearby, and making sure each child would be picked up by a grown-up. Parent after parent offered their homes to any stranded family or staff member. There was no way that we could have managed the school and maintained such a smooth and calm environment without all the dear people to assist us.
They didn't have anything to do with this. Bin Laden had nothing to do with this.
Parents came who had witnessed terrible sights. I'm proud and grateful that our school could be a safe haven, a place to find some peace and relief, some strength from being together. As I walked from class to class, I saw children happily drawing.
The FBI in 2006 took him off the list.
Classroom staff could reach into themselves and find the strength to calm and to provide normalcy so that the day becomes regular, comfortable, and stress-free for the to notify our families we were safe and find out about that. We were able to make arrangements for children and collect them. Words cannot express how thankful we are to be part of this community. Today, again, we will keep children indoors at recess to keep them as safe and secure as possible. All children must be picked up at dismissal by an adult. After-school programs will be canceled until further notice. If we have to evacuate our building for any reason, we will go to PS 19 at 1st Avenue and 11th Street. Last night, our staff got together to discuss how we are going to help the children deal with what happened. We will begin the day with a meeting so that children can express their feelings and thoughts. We want children to know that we care and listen. We want to be able to answer their questions as best we can and provide correct information if they are confused about it. We want to reassure them that we try as hard as we can to keep them safe and secure, as we did on Tuesday and every day. We want to be truthful and address what happened at their level of development. Importantly, We want to help them continue to develop caring and empathy. We want to continue to encourage the use of words to solve problems and instill the hope that groups of people and governments can use words to solve problems. If they would like to take action, writing letters, donating supplies, etc., we will help them. We, staff and families, need to look out for the physical symptoms of anxiety. Children may not be able to talk about their worries, and they could come out in the following ways: headaches, stomach aches, backaches, trouble eating or sleeping, nightmares, withdrawal, increased arguing, irritability, increased worry, loss of concentration, clinging behavior, refusal to go to school. We will provide materials for children so that they can work out and express their feelings through art, drama, and writing, as well as discussion.
Lake Afghanistan, we killed Saddam Hussein. All of that has nothing to do with this, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, think about the political realities. I'm talking about this, which happened in my town while I was sitting there, you know.
In his studies, will say that we can call one thing, and then you can call the same thing you're talking about, how people perpetrated by foreign agents on your land as actual war. I think this whole notion of wrong terrorism. I mean, how can you fight?
This is what on the way out, I was hoping.
How can you fight an abstract notion like that?
That's what I made.
Yeah, I mean,
Two is we're still in war.
the only justification for war to me is
And we're the most powerful nation on earth by this much. The fear that we feel is fabricated, man. We live in a country where people have fabricated fears.
You're literally attacked. Like you were.
Sure.
I mean, you
Or on
can
this
sit back and play with yourself if you want, or you have to defend yourself, defend your country, defend your way of life, defend whatever it is that you believe in.
Among my friends, the following possibilities are not outcounted.
So there is just.
That Osama bin Laden had nothing to do with this.
I'm not saying this well.
That it could have been anyone, including U.S. citizens.
What we did.
There was failure of communication between Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, the Federal Aviation Agency, and the World Financial Centers in Manhattan, and that we, my friends, will never know what happened because there is ample opportunity for U.S. government.
It's like nebulous, not. It's like a war. So that's what this is very fantastic. That's what the one thing that's even one of my favorite papers.
We are expected to go on with it. Our lives, the engine of the economy, urban dwelling, keeping our friends' businesses afloat, shelving our grief. We are drowning in information and disinformation, totally unconfident in the verity or trustworthiness of what we read, hear, or see. Older men and children in our communities are already carrying rumors we know are false, yet we cannot refute them without arguing with our elders.
There's
Now
most
uncouth
unifying
and a time of grief.
and
We are a city dazed.
That this happens,
Le Grand
It's sad,
Grotesque,
but it's
Macabre
not
Burlesque, the Sick
unexpected.
Jingo.
It was something
American
that we
flag
had
cut into
earned
Klansmen's robes would at least
by our
remind
behavior
white America what it
in
could
those
become,
people who
backward looking.
And now we're looking for an enemy that doesn't exist. It's a nebulous enemy.
Profiling people as evil,
So
less
it's
ugly or handicapped in
problematic.
the face of a million eyes,
Socially problematic. How do you,
eyes
how do
that
you
watch,
explain that?
watch and stare and record every
We've done this
action
bit.
and every move with
Let me
running
say, it's kind of chalky
commentary.
explanation.
Those
We're
who
going
dare
through
to
this thing,
say
and we're
what is
still in it.
not.
You know,
What is American? The illness continues among nations.
it's not a thing,
among
right?
nations. Punk and reading and public
War on
and
anger.
the surreal and the hyper-real are all made one in boiling steel and in the vicious, vengeful eyes of the racist, ignorant, soulless fool.
Anyway,
This is real hell. Real hell is the stories of the survivors on the losing side. Ask the Iraqis,
What was a nutty time?
the Afghans,
I was really trying my best to capture
the
whatever I could.
Kosovo.
We still live in a nutty time, but,
During this crisis, as many turned to drugs, narcotics, alcohol, and nicotine, as turned to their God,
I hear that.
or more.
really do.
But for the Muslims and the devout ascetics who stopped drinking. Grief ranged from tiny creeks in eternal ravines to wailing and hunger
World War III illustrator has been around since the 80s, and this was their issue after it happened.
A white glow from the work lights bathes a thin cloud of dust over lower Manhattan, accentuating the sickening void, the absence that leads to a path of thinking of why and having to replay the mental image of those dreadful television.
Yeah, these are all local artists in New York.
City election primary vote,
Yeah.
runoff
So this
due,
was the issue that came
schools
out.
reconvene, businesses running, many running scared and nervous. Students trying to breathe some normality, attempt to put
They are
Manhattan into
architects,
semester
but right now,
four.
this, like I said,
Midterms soon
only
due.
time we'll do it.
There's a whole
I've only done this
massive
5 times.
pile of rubble
Through the
downtown.
country.
Normality and madness
And they'll go back in the
hand
box
hand
and
down
they'll
the
be sitting
middle.
again, you know, like, that's the weirdness of this whole thing.
Library full, publishers active, artists, performers, writers, editors, and
Yeah, my uncle had that. It's like
communications
right
and
there.
fashion sectors all scrambled. Some faring better than others, not because of content, but
I was just
sheer
grabbing
willpower.
everything and trying to save it, you know?
There was
That
much
was my
reading
reaction,
among
was just
leaders.
grab shit and save it. I didn't know what else.
City services and its employees have been stalwart throughout,
No, please.
but heavy hearts are apparent in the faces of many. The economy worse.
It changed our whole country, you know? Instantly changed our country. Sorry.
Blowback.
I spent about 5 years.
Who now will kneel and take the cross and rise with purest hearts? The challenge has been laid. Our marketplace, our global web of trade, our goodwill towards all that otherwise must elevate the world and civilize the backward lands are now unfairly made targets of hate. But do not be dismayed by history's tangled strands. Men far more wise than we have brought us to this solemn night.
Like committing homicide with your body, right? Like, no, what you mean, like, yeah.
To dust.
For the afterlife, for the good.
Dispersed across our city, wind tossed and whipped to sea. Let no one in the sight of this ashen cloud doubt that we are right.
No one, this is the horrifying thing, this project is
I
amazing.
went up to Union Square to tape up my cards. On Tuesday, I had gone at 5 just as work was letting me, and on Wednesday, I went at 4, so perhaps that accounted for it, but something felt different.
So you're just 4 dudes.
I started working at the edges, as I had before, and saw that the same jerk who defaced my cards on Monday had
Yes.
been back. My cards from Tuesday were gone,
So
many of the other messages urging peace had been scrawled with it. War for peace. A woman with wild, unbrushed hair and a torn-off sandals asked for more of my cards, speaking very quickly. Her movements were tight and jagged. Political photo? How many 21-cent stamps would you need to resell to get high? Mixed in with the flowers, candles, photographs, and
Too
signs,
direct.
I saw more religious meetings than I had the day before. A man asked about my cards and invited me to join his church. Another man paced back and forth selling enamel flag pins. $2, just $2. These colors don't run, and the people who wear these colors don't run. A gift for your family or loved one. I moved away from the edges to the crowded base of the square, where the pool of candles and flowers spread to 100 feet, and the statue of George Washington on his walkers and chopped over with his signs. No war, no enemy. I put up my cards until they were gone.
Page
A
72,
family of
total.
beautiful dark-haired women and girls took the last week. As I walked away, I saw they all had identifications, volunteer mission. The only music in the square was a drum, which sounded every 4 or 5 seconds from the funk of dreadlock-lit teenagers camped on the grass with bags and sleeping bags. Only the faces of the dead above the molten panels on melted wax between their power. Ramon Grialva, Empire Blue Cross and Blue Shield, 26th floor, World War II.
Yes.
Filipino, Asian,
Right, how does that work? How does that work? Site,
38 years old.
So,
4 foot 11, 130 pounds. Soft and purple curly hair, very distinctive brown shades. I turned to him for
you put a look on your face, and
trying to breathe.
it's the wiggle on his brain.
A week after the attacks, we had to go by plane to San Francisco. That morning, I packed my bags and started going in. The white smudge that was left of the column of smoke was invisible against the overcast sky. I went outside. A soft rain was blowing down, and I looked around carefully. What would I want to think about when I'm done? The corner of St. Mark's and Second Avenue seemed precious enough to me. Red brick and sycamore tree, broken in eyewitness Florence, gem spot, the South Park, the apartment of the smell of leaves at Dallas being huge, the smell of coffee at Puerto Rico, the iron railings, the ginkgo leaves, the green clematis vines reaching up the side of the building. To say nothing about the blue morning glories pointing upward with their
Wow, yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
I look at the
So,
moon,
we could
blue trumpets, blue faces, each blue blast of smoke floated low like a balloon sea or ants.
Wow.
The cool wet petals felt like things soft and warm. How could a single thing evoke a jewel?
Trust me, I'm just sitting on this thing in that case because it's impossible to even, I don't know what I have, you know what I mean? I'm sitting here on something that I can't throw away. I can't throw it away, nor can I show it. I'm kind of
How could you see this?
fine with this thing. But it's like the nation, right? This thing landed on our heads. We didn't have a freaking use it on something.
but I have to tell you, finally, I'll show you.
Awesome. Space was like this.
There was some fear. You didn't give this answer, that the response would be.
America in 2002, a teenaged culture lacking all restraint, a polity of plutocrats who own the sterile discourse to stifle every complaint, a public kept amnesiac and shown endless simulacra fashioned to taint their dreams with sham desires, a swift, unknown future racing down as the planet burns, its scientists ignored, an oil-drenched state with its oil-dipped king that justly earns the world's scorn as its industries propagate guns across the globe, then turns the wounded victim with zealotry lures to aim the violence back. Is the hour too late to ask if Rome
Right.
is
It's
just
supposed to be an arts,
or
contemporary arts.
Do Americans really believe they are a chosen people? Why
That's a
should
shame.
God
That's a real
bless
shame.
America? God bless America?
Of course.
God bless America? Only America? Having more than distant deaths of so many, visible to others, makes us tougher in the presence of death sentences to the ones around us. Having said that, I am, of course, no exception to the question, direction, so many is our experience. However, below the fragile surface of the current water, there is a strong current, thousands of lives and years each.
Wow.
In that current I am strong, for I know where I stand. That complacency of empire which made us forget what was done in our name. We know what was done, securing our way.
Right, you said you had 96 or something, so, right?
We thought we stood apart from history's stream, the deep-rooted elm that stands high up a stony bank. That history itself had been overcome. That our civilization, Gandhi, good idea, could leave behind 4/5 of the earth, and that atrocities and fear were for the others. Oh, the persistence of imperial lullabies,
If you read that way,
more
mine,
like the stone river, endlessly
Well, come on.
flowing, changed by the course, even while changing.
Oh, but I think you do. That's one of the things you do.
Their argument, A searing thunderhead of burning dust crooks like a question mark all the long week and mocks the impotence in us now to seek an answer for the suffering.
Many questions to be asked.
That trust and bond without which our hard city was shattered is left in doubt. In masks, we sneak suspect looks at one another. We speak in headlines that guess at what germ infects our house. Green soldiers at the bridges bivouac. The pinch points of transit are now controlled. Citizens expect invisible attack. We accept this all calmly because we were told our gilded modern life is a temptress whore. Against her charms, the enemy makes war. The authority wants more powerful eyes, though it can already read the denominations of notes on the bedside table of any whore, ID the Johns. The zealots build numbers, hatch schemes. Fear is broken only once a day. Relief happens before sunset. A Hindu observed the 12th day. A scapegoat was quickly named. Mindless retaliation and vengeance swiftly promised. A military operation labeled. File folders created. Bulletins communicate. Alliances are being secured. Money dispersed. Deal making. The particularly sensitive cannot help but have intermittent breakdowns, collapsing into tears, falling into a heap of mournful grief.
Yes. And you should be allowed to do them. There's no controlling us. I refuse to be controlled by the free society for a reason.
Sure only of what others feel. Wise to eternal time, all awesome.
Yeah, self-censorship. Right. Well, that's why I don't think that Baraga poem, because he was being eliminated. I feel like even if you don't agree with that crazy stuff in his poem, we can't not let that be broadcast. How can you? He's one of our greatest poets, and immediately because it freaks you out at that time. Well, that's why I recorded it. I mean, even though a lot of the stuff I'm saying there is not necessarily stuff. It had to be communicated to me. It couldn't just be allowed to not. Well, we're not going to let Baraga communicate that. No, he has to be allowed.
Fires bagged anew as if to float the weight of towers, and through destruction's alchemy.
This is 3 months. You're looking at stuff only until December. Okay? See, look, all the dates are on the button. This is the 24th to November 1st. Everything in this room is from there.
Once I stood at Vesuvio's lip to drop a stone that fell so low, I don't know when or if it hit. These days are pension steep. The towers still falling in my sleep.
Most have altered it. Yeah, because they were suppressed. I don't know if it's normal and natural. I think they were suppressed, but that's a separate. Much longer. It was heavy, man. So it was good.
Which means we never get used to violence. Their scent occurs to us again and again, as if for the first time, in waves. Acrid, bitterly pungent to the brilliance of taste or smell, or to the skin, etc. Irritating, corrosive. It blew in at random, but most often at first after dark. At night the air is colder and heavier, and water vapor condenses around the particular matter.
Absolutely.
Later, when we saw her during the day, she explained how land can set faster than water, described warm air rising up from the island, and cool air rushing in to take its place, death carried in the wind. It persisted, week after week, death pouring silently into our ears, into October, into November, as the lower rain and rain. I do not know when it will end. What I saw downtown, it was a skeletal galleon. It was a volcanic crater. It was the map of hell. It ravished my heart. It took me with it. It was like all the photographs, but starker for being real, a bit of concrete.
Well, this, like I said, when this toured the country, it was 5 years ago, and everybody who came was really into it. But if I try to do it the year after, no.
The reason our towers can climb so high is that the outer frame.
So that's part of the deal.
But yeah,
And
it's amazing.
tissue of the floors collapsed so simple. That's why the towers didn't.
Well, it's everything was in New York.
Yeah.
Surrounding the blocks of stories found distinctively were buildings with blown-out windows, buildings seared in ash, a building standing intact but with a fallen piece of grillwork, like a dart forgotten board.
Or DC, or Shanksville. Any place where it was directly affected, I think, was
Keep
in a
moving,
different state of
play
mind.
stillness as we file past the plate. Take one picture and move on. Rest in peace. The soft ash like snow underfoot, the ash on every leaf of every potted tree, ash coating the good.
I didn't realize I'd done it until that dude pointed it out.
Ash on an
But I-
ash-covered counter, ash on windows, lettered by passers.
So if you're handling it.
Death to Bin Laden. Meet hate with love. 76 precinct was here.
I don't think anybody you can't rule the world without much physical material.
Actually didn't reach with it. This fetish for some
Sure.
ash.
Yeah, thank you for coming by, I appreciate
Their
it.
ashy tones. I craved green, tea green, my green postcards, green ink, green leaves in Central Park.
Let's see, who was that there visiting?
The human lung unfurled,
Hello.
30 feet long. I saw the finest of threads mixed among the ash. Asbestos? I touched it, just barely, with the tip of my finger. I gingerly brought my finger to my tongue. The ash was composed of steel and concrete, of course, and of 220 floors of asbestos insulation, of glass, of carpets, of cubicles, of computers, of copiers, of televisions, telephones, of elevators, of desks and chairs and conference tables, of restaurant ovens, bright bottles of liquor, and of the dead. I swear I tasted salt. The dead are among us, coating the sweaters and the awnings, coating 30 feet of every lung.
What do you do in New York?
From Euripides, the
we have
Trojan women,
An artist
dreaming of Troy.
called Oakland.
I see you walking this morning among the broken towers. Your eyes burn, your lungs ache with stone dust and absence. How could anyone have flung such fire out of this mild sky pretending godhood? Not even God could be so cruel. How could anyone have known? Cassandra, you say. She knew, spoke to us like a knell, but we refused to hear this, our curse, not hers after all. Now heaven has fallen, darkened the sun, and you dare the bleak morning, bearing this teeming emptiness, bearing this indestructible flame.
100 minutes. The hive mind recoils to witness out of the clear blue sky history taking a hand, switching the topless towers of etc., those glittering stacks of lucre, for a cloud of dust and a thunderclap. At dawn that day, I stood with my coffee, scanning the river in the last moment of repose before my baby wakes, watching breathless from the kitchen as first light fired only the tops of the Titanic brutish twins in mercury flashes of aluminum and glass. With each second that passed, the line of illumination cast by the earth rolling into day advanced down the poised facets of parallel orders, burnishing the pink and silver as they stood above the skyline, still undefined in the gloom below. This was the only time when they ever looked beautiful from here, our Brooklyn waterfront home. Later, a rushing, then a sound like a semi slamming too hard against the loading dock outside brought me back to the same window, in time to see my wife running up our street, our daughter in her arms, the playground abandoned as the first tower exploded over the scene. Primal, then, the urge to take flight like Aeneas, family on my back, city burning above. as the next 100 minutes unfolded. I watched a streaking glint end in a fireball, but still we did not know what we were seeing. Time stood still, and then we saw the towers fall. First, the South Tower gave a shudder near its top, a flickering undulation like the peristalsis of a vast steel snake, then let loose at the speed of doom in a ring of dust. Terrible transfiguration that worked its way down with solemn grace, a proud king falling in battle, a sinking wreath of glittering, boiling ash cloud plunging earthward. Neighbors and friends, we stood on our roof at river's edge and screamed, held each other, knowing that thousands of fellow citizens were trapped, dying. That exactly this, the common life we share in our city, our reliance on the physical, the vertical lives we join in, the formal shape of what we take as given, all under attack now, a soft target. As history's rose bloomed in slow motion across the water, its white petals billowing open into a limitless blue heaven, and the day had only just begun.
Just the emotion that you have at the moment, which,
Last summer, I hiked with friends through the lush, steep ravines of wild Tuscan hills, forsaking the road outside the city walls to plunge through the perfect day and follow the lay of the land, making our way as pilgrims to Francis's cell. When we found the monastery and passed beneath its gate, the sudden sight of their city in miniature was like a revelation, organic and whole, astride a deep-clefted stream, terraced and vegetable gardens, rooms stacked and fitted precisely in harmony with the contours of the canyon, connected by bridges and footpaths in a model of how we might live together in common pursuits. Cristoforo, overcome, burst into tears, all of us beaming with joy to see the city as form so realized. The brothers walking on the pillars, silent, or working with hoe and rake, sweeping the stones, or praying for the world outside. We recognize that this is ideally what the city wanted to be. An
It's not like
instant
anything else I do in any way.
where our
Nothing
city,
else I do is
our
like this.
world was not.
it's left a lasting legacy on
Hours later, the F-18s on patrol swoop and maneuver across our bay, out of sight long before their sound announces them.
I don't know if you'll ever have
And with
enough
each
time to
sortie's roar,
deconstruct it.
little Izzy, just a year old, drops
obviously,
everything
talk
to
Steve
take
about
cover in my arms, under my shirt.
the war that continues to this day.
A little taste, perhaps, of the permanent conflict that so many
We just forgot
families
we're
the
still
world
at war.
over are forced to share as their given,
Wasn't seventh grade.
the formal uncertainty upon which their cities and villages are founded. Burning buildings, rubble, warplanes above, the missing and the terrorized below.
My life on a small scale.
By evening, the bridges and tunnels were secured, and there was no leaving now to find a safer refuge. Instead, we returned to the roof at twilight to stand in silent groups, staring across the water, as on rooftops in every direction others did the same, faces turned toward the violent mystery that contained a revelation that lay obscured beneath a cloud 100 stories high, floodlit so that it glowed in even the darkest hours.
That's what I was hoping to show here, is what it was like there then.
In my dark room, I shake the tray
My stuff is the spine.
until black is truly black,
Many others as possible.
shaking out 5 years of images around this home, our neighborhood.
Yeah, I was reading that.
But so many of them are changed now. My baby, swaddled and 2 weeks
You
old,
don't really get a
on the
sense of it.
rooftop, the towers behind her. And there again, Amy tending the garden, Rosemary in the foreground, city behind. And there, in a photo of electric storm clouds I took from my canoe midstream on the East River,
how
The towers
that
are
one
looming,
event,
impassive and
never
silent.
the recollection
And there,
shaped
they shine
so
above
much
the
of
street
following
hockey
generation.
kids playing
Around the
on
world,
Wall
right?
Street.
Around the
Yeah.
world. I mean,
Yeah.
policy all over the world.
It's just one of those things that you can't, the scope of it seems unimaginable.
Yeah.
You said like just worldwide, like 6 billion people, and they're all affected by what happened there.
Yeah. And it still isn't clear what happened in a lot of ways. But I was there, so I had to do something. And this is basically it. I collected material and I interviewed people and I recorded them and I got their poems. And I took that tape recorder and went around and recorded people in the streets. Their stuff's in here, you know. And I collected documents from the streets. I did what I could to sort of grasp what was happening around me. You know, and others were doing that with me.
But in the same way that, you know, sometimes you look at stuff with the perspective of hindsight, I think getting those firsthand at the moment, you know, takes on what it meant, kind of preserves it in a way that you don't get, you know, a month later, or 2 months later with the, you know, the geographical distance. It's there right now. What do you think about this? I think that, you know, in the future gives people a clear understanding of maybe the reason we did the things that we did afterwards. So. But I'm just so glad I wrote it down. Just there's a lot that is like I looked at it and I go, yeah, I remember a lot of that going on, and I'm just, you know, 12. Just from that perspective, seeing adults like they're looking to like, yeah, I'm going through puberty, but also what is it like? Is this normal? And like having them seeing them struggle for answers.
Yeah, because nothing was normal in this situation.
What does that do to you? You know, just as a kid, you know, adults don't have this under control.
Yeah,
at all.
Right. You can see the tragedy in their face, right?
Yeah. You know, just seeing your perspective, you know, being there, but also like, you know, having a little bit deeper connection, like asking a little bit deeper questions than most of the adults that I knew in, you know, rural Texas. It's like, you know, how do we know where is the vice president? What was Bush doing at this time? Like,
well, if you want to check out the conspiratorial crowd, that back table has all that. And I interviewed, on the 5th anniversary, I interviewed a bunch of people at Cooper Union who came to do a thing. And they're pretty lucid. I mean, they're not, they don't sound like nutbags. That's Father Morales. That's online. I can send it to you. It's on YouTube. But there are people who have very strong different beliefs about it.
We all have this story that we can memorize. All Earth is a great light. The sand itself is millions of sea creatures. Their shells mashed up. And we forget our planet is broken. We pick it. And why did our gods convince us there was something better somewhere else? Green tendrils go through the dark
Thanks. This first show in the United States.
This life we have right now, but we are so lucky to be having. We exist. This here exists.
Hello.
Our world changes around us. Our ideas about our world, ourselves, die. We give birth. I have a daughter. She carries eggs that may become grandchildren. Tiny lives, delicate as flowers, eternal as sand.
Thanks, Carter.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll get to work.
All right. I crashed on the couch for about 20 minutes and then Lewis walked in. He was the first person. I was like, "Ugh." I woke up and he cooked.
No hesitate.
Oh, you said I should.
gonna take this on a little tour of the room here.
Admits that it has no evidence linking Bin Laden and Al Qaeda to 9/11. This is our own FBI.
They were pressed just recently in spring, and they still say they don't have an
So if we don't know who, if we know that it would not, the FBI saying it's not Bin Laden and Al Qaeda. Well, who perpetrated this crime? This crime remains unsolved. So all we're saying is that we
Getting fantastic responses from everyone.
Cool.
People are loving it.
I'm glad.
It's conversation. So they're like, everybody's like, what did you think of this? What did you think of that?
Nice.
That's interesting. And some other people may be coming in, just some friends that I texted and said, you need to see this thing.
I have a question. Do you happen to have an aspirin by any chance?
What?
An aspirin, or like Tylenol or something? I got it for the head.
Yeah,
That was
I
up
do.
all night.
Hold on.
Do you mind if I trouble you for that?
Yeah, people are loving it, Carly.
I'm glad.
It's really good.
Huh?
Yes, it is.
It is what? Yeah. You gonna split?
Yeah, I gotta work.
Oh shit, you're at Saints. I'll come see you. I'm just kind of stuck here, so I'm staying here. Hi. You alright?
Ask you a question.
Yes.
I'm gonna go grab something. You need anything to eat?
No, cool. I need a Tylenol that he's got. So you're good? Yeah. Thank you, I appreciate it. No, I'm fine. Thanks very much, dude. I appreciate it. See you. Thanks for this. I'll talk to you later. We'll catch up. I'm gonna be here all day, so.
Alright. Sounds good.
Did you guys end up last night?
A little bit. Well, Andrea had some this morning.
Nice.
I had enough last night. I still feel it, to be honest.
Yeah, it was good, right?
Very good.
Yeah.
Took a sick day.
Good day. Good day for that.
But wanted to. It's nice. Thank you. Sure. Very much.
We'll catch up. We'll catch up later.
All right.
Thanks a lot. I'll see you.
Here's a non-aspirin aspirin, awesome. And there's bubbly water and water in the little fridge.
Perfect.
And go for it, man. If you need it, it's there.
I appreciate you.
Like throughout the day. I'll be back.
I'll be here. I was supposed to do some performance here today, and I didn't get around to it, mostly because of fatigue. But yeah, I should do so, I think. So, I'm burned out.
On September 11th, 2001, the world was stunned with the horrific terrorist attacks on the United States. RAWA stands with the rest of the world in expressing our sorrow and condemnation for this barbaric act of violence and terror. RAWA had already warned that the United States should not support the most treacherous, most criminal, most anti-democracy and anti-women Islamic fundamentalist parties, because after both the jihadi and the Taliban have committed every possible type of heinous crimes against our people, they would feel no shame in committing such crimes against the American people, whom they consider infidel. In order to gain and maintain their power, these barbaric criminals are ready to turn easily to any criminal force. But unfortunately, we must say that it was the government of the United States who supported Pakistani dictator General Zia-ul-Haq in creating thousands of religious schools from which the germs of Taliban emerged. In the similar way, as is clear to all, Osama bin Laden has been the blue-eyed boy of CIA. But what is more painful is that American politicians have not drawn a lesson from their pro-fundamentalist policies in our country
and are still supporting this or that fundamentalist band or leader. In our opinion, any kind of support to the fundamentalists, Taliban, and jihadis is actually trampling democratic, women's rights, and human rights values. If it is established that the suspects of the terrorist attacks are outside the U.S., our constant claim that fundamentalist terrorists would devour their creators is proved once more. The U.S. government should consider the root cause of this terrible event, which has not been the first and will not be the last one, too. The U.S. should stop supporting Afghan terrorists and their supporters once and for all. Now that the Taliban and Osama are the prime suspects by the U.S. officials after the criminal attacks, will the U.S. subject Afghanistan to a military attack similar to the one in 1998 and kill thousands of innocent Afghans for the crimes committed by the Taliban and Osama? Does the U.S. think that through such attacks, with thousands of deprived, poor, and innocent people of Afghanistan as its victims, they will be able to wipe out the root cause of terrorism? Or will it spread terrorism even to a larger scale? From our point of view, vast and indiscriminate military attacks on a country that has been facing permanent disasters for more than 2 decades will not be a matter of pride. We don't think such an attack would be the expression of the will of the American people. The U.S. government and people should know that there is a vast difference between the poor and devastated people of Afghanistan and the terrorist, jihadi, and Taliban criminals. While we once again announce our solidarity and deep sorrow with the people of the U.S., we also believe that attacking Afghanistan and killing its most ruined and destitute people will not in any way decrease the grief of the American people. We sincerely hope that the great American people could differentiate between the people of Afghanistan and a handful of fundamentalist terrorists. Our hearts go out to the people of the U.S.
From Euripides, the Trojan women, dreaming of Troy, I see you walking this morning among the broken towers. Your eyes burn, your lungs ache with stone dust and absence. How could anyone have flung such fire out of this mild sky pretending godhood? Not even God could be so cruel. How could anyone have known? Cassandra, you say. She knew, spoke to us like a knell, but we refused to hear this, our curse, not hers after all. Now heaven has fallen, darkened the sun, and you, Dare the bleak morning, bearing this teeming emptiness, bearing this indestructible flame. Dear families, this is not the letter I had in mind to write to you for the first letter of the year. I was going to write about how all the teachers came into school a week early, on their own time, eager to have everything in the classrooms just right for the children, fresh and clean and interesting for a great new year full of potential for learning and growing. I wanted to write about how eager the children were to be in class and to dig right into their studies. And I wanted to write about how great it was to see you and how I was looking forward to working with you this year. That was then, before Tuesday. And now is now, and it is different. I have to write about how, overlaid on an event of unspeakable horror, I found selflessness, love, and generosity. The instant this tragedy struck, parents came into the school, offering help, asking what they could do. Parents set up an information center, brought food, relayed messages to the classes, helped at lunch and recess, and managed the release of children to adults. They worked the telephones tirelessly, trying to locate parents and guardians who we knew worked in the Twin Towers or nearby, and making sure each child would be picked up by a grown-up. Parent after parent offered their homes to any stranded family or staff member. There was no way that we could have managed the school and maintained such a smooth and calm environment without all the dear people who assisted us that day. Parents came who had witnessed terrible sights. I'm proud and grateful that our school could be a safe haven, a place to find some peace and relief, some strength from being together. As I walked from class to class, I saw children happily drawing, writing, reading, and working with each other. I am in awe of how the classroom staff could reach into themselves and find the strength to be calm and to provide normalcy so that the day could be as regular, comfortable, and stress-free for the children as possible. Lastly, the Parents' Aid allowed us one by one to notify our families we were safe and find out about them. We were able to make arrangements for our children and collect them. Words cannot express how thankful we are to be part of this community. Today, again, we will keep children indoors at recess to keep them as safe and secure as possible. All children must be picked up at dismissal by an adult. After-school programs will be canceled until further notice. If we have to evacuate our building for any reason, we will go to PS 19 at 1st Avenue and 11th Street. Last night, our staff got together to discuss how we are going to help the children deal with what happened. We will begin the day with a meeting so that children can express their feelings and thoughts. We want children to know that we care and listen. We want to be able to answer their questions as best we can and provide the correct information if they are confused about anything. We want to reassure them that we try as hard as we can to keep them safe and secure, as we did on Tuesday and every day. We want to be truthful and address what happened at their level of development. Importantly, we want to help them continue to develop caring and empathy. We want to continue to encourage the use of words to solve problems and instill the hope that groups of people and governments can use words to solve problems. If they would like to take action, writing letters, donating supplies, etc., we will help them. We, staff and families, need to look out for the physical symptoms of anxiety. Children may not be able to talk about their worries, and they could come out in the following ways: headaches, stomach aches, backaches, trouble eating or sleeping, nightmares, withdrawal, increased arguing, irritability, increased worry, loss of concentration, clinging behavior, refusal to go to school. We will provide materials for children so that they can work out and express their feelings through art, drama, and writing, as well as discussion.
Hive mind recoils. What has been wrought upon this, our collective expression, the city inviolate? Our daily struggle, what we live together, is beyond bearing. At dawn that morning, as 1,000 other mornings, I stood with my coffee looking across the river, the last moment of repose before my daughter wakes.
It is said a rich braggart once took a Sufi on a tour of his enormous house. At the end, he asked, "What impressed you most of all?" The Sufi answered, "The fact that the earth is strong enough to support the weight of such a massive building." The magazine called Technological Jiu-Jitsu what the cowboys in charge called war and the patriots clamored to pronounce cowardly. The Jews did the yearly Kaddish. The silent hide their inner feelings of helplessness and sorrow under the heel of the militant's boot. Humanists, monks, sages, rabbi, priests, imams, and the literati and Indians familiar with the same dull drumbeat that calls to war, protest civilly for restraint. The callous soldiers smile, nod, and even wink, loading munitions, whistling. The clatter of the machines of destruction drowns out the prayer for peace. I can no longer hear the voice of reason. Ah, there it is, a whisper. A scapegoat was quickly named, mindless retaliation in vengeance swiftly promised, a military operation labeled, file folders created, bulletins, communique, alliances are being secured, money dispersed, deal meaning, The particularly sensitive cannot help but have intermittent breakdowns, collapsing into tears, falling into a heap of mournful grief. The Muslims continue about their business in a hate-filled world, sure only of what others fear. Among my friends, the following possibilities are not outcounted. That Osama bin Laden had nothing to do with this, that it could have been anyone, including US citizens, that there was failure of communication between Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, the Federal Aviation Agency, and the World Financial Centers in Manhattan, and that we, my friends, may never know what happened because there is ample opportunity for US government power to reconstitute evidence to tell whatever story advances their own agenda. We are expected to go on with it, Our lives, the engine of the economy, urban dwelling, keeping our friends' businesses afloat, shelving our grief. We are drowning in information and disinformation, totally unconfident in the verity or trustworthiness of what we read, hear, or see. We are a city dazed. Le grand grotesque, macabre burlesque, the sick jingo. American flags cut into Klansmen's robes would at least remind white America what it could become, backward looking. Nostalgia has become whitewashing, profiling people as evil, less ugly or handicapped in this place of a million eyes, eyes upon eyes that watch and watch and watch and stare and record every action, every move with running commentary of those who would dare to say what is not American. What is American? The illness continues among nations as among religions. Pomp and grieving in public, parading crocodile tears beside real horror and pain, the very real, the surreal, and the hyper-real are all made one in boiling steel and in the vicious, vengeful eyes of the racist, ignorant, soulless fool who has never known war. Real hell is the stories of the survivors on the losing side. Ask the Iraqis, the Afghanis, the Kosovar. Grief ranged from tiny creeks of interminable length, turning in the maddening darkness atypically silent in New York, to wailing and heaving of the form into the bed, into the sofa, into the walls. A white glow from the work lights bathes the thin cloud of dust over lower Manhattan, accentuating the sickening void, the absence that leads to a path of thinking of why and having to replay the mental image of those dreadful television broadcasts. City election primary held, runoff due. Schools reconvened, businesses running, many running scared and nervous. Students trying to create some normality attempt to put Manhattan into the semester format. Midterms soon due. There's a hole and a massive pile of rubble downtown. Normality and madness walk hand in hand down the middle of Broadway. Library full, publishers active, artists, performers, writers, editors, and entertainment, communications, and fashion sectors all scrambling. Some faring better than others, not because of content, but sheer volume. There is much grieving among labor. City services and its employees have been stalwart throughout, but heavy hearts are apparent in the faces of many. The economy worsen.